Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight here in Warsaw. I'm in Warsaw tonight. Hey, Jack, or JR, and I'm late. I'm so sorry. So it's about 1 a.m. in Kyiv, and I am a 17-hour bus ride away from Kyiv, which is why there will be no live tomorrow. And we're late tonight because I fell asleep. I just passed right out, man, after dinner, and I've just awakened. And so we will try to do a little catch up here from over the weekend. Hey, Steve-O. Hey, Betty Thompson. How's everybody doing? Hey, Raven. Philip Waldron, how do you do? Tony Toppings, nice to see you. How's everybody doing tonight? I am exhausted. There's no two ways about it. Hey, Anthony, Tommy Tom. Hey, Gary. Good evening. Basil. So after a week in Sofia, we're back in Warsaw and headed from Warsaw to Kyiv tomorrow. It has been quite a weekend. Nice to see you, Betty. How you doing? It's been quite a weekend for Ukraine. Ukraine keeps hitting naval ports with Russian drones, and we can expect it to continue. Now, I'm not sure which hit you're talking about, Raven. The big hit recently, of course, was on Tuapse and Novorossiysk, where the targets were not the Russian fleet, the Russian Black Sea fleet, which is mostly hiding in Novorossiysk these days, but rather the target were the oil pumping stations. In Novorossiysk and Tuapse, roughly 2 million barrels a day get loaded, and it was the pumping stations that were hit there. And as I understand it, this has caused a significant delay in the loading of oil in both of those ports. It's very hard to know, right? The Russians aren't saying. And so you have to deduce rather, from the number of ships that are coming and going from those ports. And it appears as though loading is down about 700,000 barrels a day, so nearly in half. And I am late. I'm an hour late, David, because I was just exhausted. I was just exhausted, and I fell asleep, and I expected, I was at Starbucks. I went to Starbucks. I got a grande bold. And I thought, well, if I drink this and now I close my eyes for a few minutes, the caffeine will kick in and I won't be able to sleep. No, fuck no. 3 hours, boom, out like a light. So yes, I am exhausted, Bernard. And this is before my 17-hour bus ride home tomorrow. It's a good exhaustion, though. It was a busy and productive week in Sofia in Bulgaria. And you know what? Let me get out the list here. And let's go down the list and thank everybody that made Sofia possible. And it's a pretty long list, let me tell you. And I owe somebody a sponsorship for tonight, so let's see who that is. Hey, Renee Herman, how you doing? Let's take a look here. Let's do a little housekeeping, shall we? So, let's see. Let's go all the way back here because it's a long list, boy, of people that made this trip possible. Certainly, Derek Sands is among the. There are 3 big sponsors of the whole trip. Derek Sands, 4 actually. Sorry, Derek Sands, Avi, Arna, and Ted Greenow. Huge thanks to those 3 guys. Without them, there is no way I would be able to pay the rent when I get home. No way. Hey, Clive, how you doing? So big thanks to them. And then other sponsors of this trip include our buddy Pingu, the dancing penguin, Avi, of course, Mike Nally, Jan Halverson, Arn, I mentioned, Daryl Roberts, our buddy Daryl Roberts, who I didn't see come in yet, Guy Matthews, our buddy Guy, Scully, our friend from down under there, Cara, one of our Nordic friends, Laura Kay, and let's see. And, one anonymous donor and one anonymous fella. So big thanks to all those folks who made this trip possible. Our sponsor on Friday was Arna, and that means that, let's see, tonight's sponsor would then be... I'm so sorry. Scully, our friend Scully from Down Under. So if anybody sees Scully, please thank her and let them know that we appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. And I will be back in Kyiv tomorrow, but not in time for a live. Not in time for a live. So there will be no live tomorrow. Tomorrow it will not be an occasion where I've fallen asleep. Tomorrow it will be occasion where I'll be in transit. Thanks, Alan. I am late, guard. I am late by an hour. I was asleep. Hey, Eric, I drank a big cup of coffee from Starbucks, and I thought for sure that even if I closed my eyes, that caffeine would kick in. But no, I'm afraid not. I am absolutely afraid not. So, everybody, welcome to this live. Thanks, everybody who made the trip to Bulgaria possible. Bernard, it went really very well. It was a very eye-opening experience, and it demonstrated to me very clearly how very little knowledge I have on this subject. And it provided me with a number of tools that I can bring back to Ukraine and put to work for us there and share with my Ukrainian friends. Hey, Seawolf. And I want to be very clear about something here. Ukraine is winning. Now, that is something that for nearly the first 1,000 days that I've been doing this, I couldn't say with any confidence. Hey, Refurb. Hey, Jerry. That was something that for the first almost 1,000 days, because this channel is coming up on its 1,000-day anniversary. And if you had told me that I would be in Ukraine for nearly 3/4 of the full-scale invasion, I would never have believed you. Remember, I went to Ukraine on a 3-month volunteer contract. And 3 months turned into 6 months, into 9 months, etc. And so and none of that would be possible without all of you, right? Especially, of course, the Patreons folks. So I'm very grateful for all that. And I'm very grateful for this week. And the many people that I met in Sofia, a town, right? A name which means wisdom. And I was certainly exposed to a lot of wisdom, as well as my own foolishness, quite a bit this week. Hey, Coffin. How much land has Russia stolen in the last 2 years of their offense? So, first of all, Anthony, I think you're absolutely right to call it an offense, right? Not an offensive, but rather an offense against reason, offense against nature, an offense against the sovereignty of the Ukrainian people. Everything that the Russians do is offensive in Ukraine. Yeah, Jerry, we're talking about Ukraine here, pal. There's too much news in the world to talk about anything else. So we're going to keep the focus on Ukraine here, right? That is one of the reasons why this channel exists. What are the three reasons that this channel exists? One, to disambiguate Russian disinformation. Two, to keep Ukraine in the news so that when tragedies of our own making at home in the United States, tragedies of our own making happen, we do not lose focus, as bad as they are and as difficult as things are at home right now under this Trump regime. We do not lose focus on the fact that the most important thing happening in the world right now is the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine stands alone as a shield against authoritarian aggression in the world and in Europe. And then finally, the third reason that this channel exists is to act as a point of synergy so that people who want to do things for Ukraine can find resources to assist with that, and others who wish to do the same. So, Jerry, I appreciate your perspective, and I know that you appreciate mine. So thank you. And Aces High says, and as I understand, just off the top of my head, Aces High, you're just about right. I'm sorry, you're not. You need to move a decimal point. You need to move a decimal point. So Anthony Tommy Tom's question was, how much land has Russia gained? I think the question was in this summer offensive. And if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 square kilometers, something like that. But I can tell you this, that since Bakhmut, in nearly 26 months, the Russians have gained just about 0.93% of Ukraine. 0.93% of Ukraine in 26 months. Now, if we had gained 1% of Iraq in 26 months and lost 1 million guys, do you think anybody would be saying that we were a success, that we were winning? And forget about now the havoc. I'm not going to say that the Ukrainians are wrecking, because the Russians have brought this all on themselves. They have brought it all on themselves with their refusal to acknowledge Ukrainian sovereignty, with their lies about Ukrainians committing genocide against Russians in Ukraine. I have spoken to so many, and I know personally so many Russian-speaking Ukrainians who fled the Russian invasion, who wanted nothing to do with the murderous, genocidal, rapacious Russian horde pouring across the border. Remember Prigozhin's recruiting speeches to prisoners in Russian jails, right? We've seen the video evidence of this. We have seen Prigozhin recruiting prisoners in jail, violent offenders, by saying to them, I will give you unlimited access to violence. You will be able to unalive Ukrainians until there are no more Ukrainians to unalive. You will be able to grape Ukrainians until you have graped every Ukrainian left alive. You will be able to steal everything that you can put your... This was the promise. This was the recruiting speech that brought, we believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000 Russian violent criminals out of the prisons and into the army, into the meat grinder in Ukraine. When the war started, there were 460,000 Russians in Russian jails. Today, that number is hovering just around 200,000. Most of them are fertilizing sunflowers in Ukraine, is what became of them. This appeal to violence, this appeal to unlimited violence, is how the Russians funneled meat into the meat grinder for one purpose and one purpose only: to feed the unappeasable appetites of a single genocidal lunatic in the Kremlin who wanted to rewrite history to make Russia the good guy. Hey, Avi. Good evening. Hey, Jan. So, this is where we are at. Now, mentally, do you feel quite a relief not worrying about drones while you are there? So that's a great question, Aces High. Aces High says, do you feel a great sense of relief being out of Ukraine and not having to worry about air raids? I'm not sure that I do. Because for a couple reasons. First of all, here in Poland, it used to be that you could cross the Polish border and you would immediately feel that sense of relief, right? You could cross the Polish border and immediately you knew that you were in a space where the air space was clear. You could cross the Polish border, and if a plane flew overhead, you didn't have to flinch because you knew that it was just a plane, right? But we're not living in that world anymore, Aces High. We have seen Russian drone incursions into Poland, into Romania, into Denmark, into Norway, into Sweden, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia now. We have seen manned jet incursions into Estonian airspace. Operation Eastern Sentry is in full force with a shoot down authorization for any bogies coming out of Russian airspace into NATO EU airspace, everywhere from Finland and Sweden through Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Moldova, all the way down the list. And so that sense of relief that we used to feel coming into Poland, you don't get it anymore. I don't have it. I was worried. I am worried because I don't know what's coming next. Nobody does. The sound of drones echoes in our minds, says Designology, and from now on we will worry for our families no matter where we are. And that could well be. I'm certainly not going to argue such a point. Hey, David Frazier, nice to see you. I think, David, you get in town this week. You return to Kyiv just about the same time I do. I'm out of Warsaw tomorrow and headed home. So, Budlaska. So Seawolf says, I heard today that the drones in Denmark were launched from Shadow Fleet tankers in international waters. Well, pal, you shouldn't have heard that today because we talked about it on Friday. Was it Friday? Friday or Thursday? I think Thursday, actually. Now, at the time, look, I know I talk fast sometimes, and we talk about a lot of things, and people aren't here for the whole thing. But the big news, either Thursday or Friday last week, was the drone incursion into Denmark, right? It was Thursday, okay. And the drone incursion into Denmark, the big thing that had everybody curious. Hey, Feisty. Sorry I'm late tonight. The big thing that had everybody curious was, where did the drones go? Because they did seem to disappear. They did seem to disappear. And oh, that's funny, David. We get into Ukraine just about the same time. Well, be careful, brother. Be careful. So anyway, these drones appeared, if everybody remembers last week, the latest likely Russian drone incursion, the Danish defense minister, sorry. The Danish defense minister said very clearly, while he didn't mention Russia specifically, he said that this was the act of a professional actor intended to terrorize and disrupt Danish airspace, which it certainly did. Flights were grounded, airports shut down, I think 3 commercial airports and 1 military air base, all shut down because of these drones flying in Danish airspace. And in this particular incursion, the drones disappeared. They were in the air, then they disappeared, and nobody quite knew where they went. And I was listening to Dominic Nichols from Ukraine the Latest, the podcast. He, along with much of the open source intelligence community, immediately started looking at vessel traffic in the region. And a Russian Shadow Fleet tanker was identified as being, was it a Shadow Fleet? Now I forget the details. A Russian tanker, let's call it, or a Russian cargo ship. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Russian cargo ship that is sometimes used by the Russian military for transport of goods for the Russian military. I probably have the name of it here someplace. But anyway, when you look at the track of that cargo ship, it looks like the fjords. Its path is as straight as a fjord. It's just circling on itself. It's doing this. It's going around here. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense, the track of this ship. And that led many in the open source intelligence community to suggest that the Russians had learned a lesson from the Ukrainians and were copying them. It was sort of a Operation Spiderweb ripoff, if you will, right? Rather than launching the drones in the traditional way from Russian territory, it appears that the drones may well have been launched locally using the cargo ship as a drone platform. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it was today or late yesterday evening when Zelensky came out and stated that it was the belief of Ukrainian intelligence that that is exactly what happened to the Danes. That this Russian cargo ship was used as a drone platform, a kind of aircraft carrier at sea for unmanned systems forces. Now, Matthew, I don't know that the drones over Denmark were identified. I was sort of busy this weekend, and I have not kept up with a lot of the details in the press. Now, what we know about the Polish attack And what I believe about the Romanian incursion, though I'm still waiting on confirmation of that from an official source, is that Gerbera drones were used. Now, the Gerbera is a Russian decoy drone, mostly made of foam rubber and plywood, very cheap to produce, gives a radar cross-section that's reminiscent of a Shahed, but is not in fact armed. It's a decoy, a cheap decoy intended to confuse air defense with lots of radar signatures in the air, making it difficult to understand which targets are critical, which ones are armed and should get priority. So these decoys are intended to overwhelm and exhaust air defense. By sending them into Poland 2 weeks ago, the Russians were provoking the Poles without actually sending anything armed into the airspace. We believe that that was the case in Romania as well, though the Romanians have failed to clarify that. It is certainly possible that if I were the Russians and we were going to now provoke yet another NATO country in a way that has not been done before, using a cargo ship, a container ship, as a drone launching platform, I might want to hedge my bets by making sure that those drones were not armed. And so that if they were shot down and forensic analysis was done on them, the country whose airspace I had violated might not feel as much as they were attacked, as the Polish foreign minister refused to say when the drones, the 24 Gerberas, came into Polish airspace. I shouldn't say 24 Gerberas. I don't know that they were all Gerberas. The pictures of the ones that we saw shot down in Poland were clearly unarmed Gerberas. But beyond that, we don't know. We don't have pictures of all 24 of them. The Russians are trying to blame the drones in Poland on Ukraine. So it is important to understand, everybody. Yeah, Russia could use Transnistria to launch drones into Romania. Sure, they could. No problem. That's not an issue. They did, Aces High. That's why the initial number was 19, but then it rose to 24. Because at least 5 drones invaded Polish airspace, then turned around and came back into Ukraine. Now, again, the Gerberas fly in Ukraine, right? You want to overwhelm air defense. So we don't know if the ones that turned around and came back were in fact armed or not. We just, at least I don't know. Hold that thought, Seawolf. Let's come back to that. The point that Zelensky was making today when he was talking about this is that it is time to start interdicting the Shadow Fleet. That if the Russians are going to use these Shadow Fleet vessels to commit acts of sabotage against undersea cables, if these Shadow Fleet vessels represent a danger to shipping and to the ecology of the world, because they are not safe, they are not maintained. Just look at what's happening with the Russian Navy. You have a submarine right now. You have a submarine right now in the Mediterranean that looks like it's going to have to dump all of its fuel into the Med in order to save itself, because the fuel system has failed. Fuel is leaking into the bilge water, and apparently, right, reports, it's hard to know what's happening on a submarine. But if reports are accurate, then there's actually fuel leaking into the hold. And if that's the case, all you need is one smoking Ivan for that ship to go kaboom. That's a problem. It's been reported in by the Russians that the guys on the ship, right, do not have the expertise or the parts to repair the damage. So they are now stuck having to trek 4,000 miles to Murmansk to put into repairs, for repairs. And this is so important to understand, guys, that the loss of Syria and the part of Tartus means that the Russians can't, not only does it mean that the Russians can't project power in the Middle East, it means that they have no safe harbor, no safe haven to put into. There was a lot of discussion, right, that they were going to just move over to Libya. Well, apparently the Libyans don't want them because they've got no place to go, and they're looking at a 4,000 kilometer trek to Murmansk. I don't know what weapons are on the diesel submarine fleet. So this is the Novorossiysk. It's a Kilo-class submarine. And they're missile-carrying ships. I don't think they carry that many missiles. Maybe, I want to say 16, but don't quote me on this. Oh, he's already gone, George. Don't pay no attention to those trolls. Do not feed the trolls, Georgie boy. Sergey, I am late. I'm in Warsaw, where it's just midnight, 12:30 here. And I'm on an hour late because I fell asleep, pal. I was absolutely exhausted after the week in Bulgaria and the travel today. Anyway. And I'm shaking my head over my own foolishness. Somebody said the other day how smart I am. One night I'm going to have to tell you guys stories about how dumb I am so that we're a little bit clearer on that. Because I am real dumb, boy. I'm so dumb sometimes. So anyway, Mike, that BK was so good, man. So two things we do not have in Ukraine that they have here in Poland are Starbucks and Burger King. Somebody mentioned Dunkin' Donuts. If there's a Dunkin' Donuts here, I want some fucking donuts tomorrow. I'll tell you right now. I'm going to have to look that shit up. But I had a Whopper with cheese, and I had a chicken sandwich. And Poland, while it's Schengen zone, so it's EU, right? But they don't have the currency and other things. They apparently do not have all of the food restrictions, so it was a real, genuine American pink slime chicken burger sandwich. It was so delicious. It really made me so happy. It's such a stupid thing. I know. Raven says that on a Kilo-class submarine, there are 12 to 16 caliber cruise missiles and torpedoes. Thank you, Raven. Thank you very much. It's exactly what I was looking for. So 12 to 16. Okay. But that's not what worries us about the Novorossiysk. What worries us about the Novorossiysk is that it's sinking, right? It's spewing fuel into the Mediterranean, which is an ecological disaster for the Med. And because the Russians no longer have the port of Tartus available to them in Syria, they are now facing a 4,000 kilometer run home to Murmansk through some of the roughest waters that there are on the planet, right? The North Sea, right on the edge of the Barents Sea. That's a concern for everybody, especially the 40 or 50 guys that are trapped in that tin can. Unlikely that it's nuclear armed, Matthew, because it's not. Now, it might be, I guess. I'm not sure. But it's one of the diesel-powered submarines, not one of the nuclear-powered submarines of the Russian fleet. Most of that leg of Russia's nuclear triad is, as I understand it, is homed in Kamchatka. And we still don't have a good damage assessment from the tsunami that hit that base in Kamchatka. Maybe they could be. Well, actually, Raven, if in fact those calibers had tactical nuclear warheads on them, we would be less worried about them. At least I would be less inclined to worry about them, since the consensus among analysts that I listen to is that none of Russia's tactical nuclear arsenal works. None of it works. Now again, we don't know that, right? We're not 100% sure on that. But the confidence and consensus among so many experts in this field is that Russia's tactical nuclear arsenal is worthless. Worthless. Gives me a great deal of satisfaction and confidence that that's not our nuclear concern today. Yeah, and I don't want to put it to the test either. But the people in the know seem to agree that that's not where our concern is. When it comes to nukes today and the Russians, where our concern seems to be is with the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And this is important, and I do not want to be alarmist about it, so I want to examine the facts. We all know that nuclear fuel rods must be cooled. The Ukrainians designed retaining walls for a cooling pond to assure that there is always a supply of fresh water to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So a lack of water should not be the concern when it comes to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Ensuring that that water continues to flow over those fuel rods, keeping them cool so that they do not start firing neutrons at each other and sending them into a state of meltdown is our concern. That's our concern. If they had destroyed the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, you would all know about it. We would all know about it because it would be as big a nuclear disaster as Chernobyl. So they have not destroyed the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. They are in control of it, right? Now, that's not what the analysts that I read say. Just the opposite, Raven. So at any rate, no, I meant the damage and the water. I'm not following you, Tenpat. I don't know what you mean. So the water supply at Zaporizhzhia is secure. The Ukrainians saw to that. What you do when you build a nuclear power plant, because keeping the fuel rods cool is so critical to not blowing everything up and irradiating the place so that nothing grows there for 10,000 years. What's so critical to that is a power supply for the pumps. Power supply for the pumps. So when the Ukrainians ran the plant, two separate power grids, one primary and one backup, and two separate power grids so that if, say, God forbid, you had a power outage in Zaporizhzhia, everything could fail over to the secondary grid. And you'd get your power from there, the pumps would keep running, your fuel rods would stay cool, right? And then just in case, God forbid, both those grids went offline, for temporary relief, you had diesel power generators. And the diesel generators, you would put your diesel fuel in, get them going. They would keep the pumps going, keep the fuel rods cool, right? So 3 backup systems, 2 separate external power supplies to keep the pumps running, plus the diesel generators on site to keep the power running. The diesel generators, now here's the thing about the diesel generators. You got to keep putting fuel in them. So the Ukrainians kept 30 days of fuel on site, and the Russians are currently reporting that they still have more than 20 days worth of fuel on site. They can keep the diesel generators running for 30 days. Well, we're down to 20 plus days now because the pumps have been off for 96 hours. Or I'm sorry, not the pumps. The main power supply into the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been offline due to Russian shelling. Make no mistake, due to Russian incompetence and shelling. The external power has been cut to Zaporizhzhia. The Russians refuse to allow the Ukrainians to go in and hook up the Ukrainian power grid to the plant because the Russians are actively trying to steal the plant. The first power lines are down because the Russians are trying to hook the plant up to the Russian power grid. Only they're incompetent and they're in the middle of a war that they can't manage, and the Ukrainians are hitting supply lines and logistics. And so it's not getting done. And again, they refuse to let the Ukrainians hook it up. Now, according to the IAEA Inspector General's office, right, the International Atomic Energy Agency, according to them and their safety guidelines, no nuclear power plant like Zaporizhzhia should ever have to depend on diesel generators for power to the pumps for more than 72 hours. That running the pumps from the diesel generators, which are prone to failure and are not intended for long-term use, is a safety concern. And it's, as I understand it, it is a safety concern. Mike Kelly just said there, he works in nuclear power, and you have to have water to keep those fuel rods cool. Because if the water stops flowing, the temperature in those fuel rods is going to start to accelerate. It's going to get higher and higher and higher. They're going to start firing neutrons at each other. And that's going to put you into a critical positive feedback loop where you have a core meltdown. We are on the verge right now because for no reason other than Russian incompetence of a nuclear disaster on the scale of Chernobyl. That's where we're at right now. Now, I say because of Russian incompetence, I hope to God that it's because of Russian incompetence. Because if it's not, then it's by design. And that is my great concern, that they are doing this on purpose. A cornered rat is dangerous. It will bite, it will scratch, it will do things that in its normal life are unthinkable to an enemy hundreds of times its size. Because it is cornered, it is trapped, and it will do the unthinkable. And my concern, my big concern right now, are the Russians doing this on purpose? Are they intending? Remember what Putin threatened us all with at the beginning of this war. He threatened us with the 3 Fs, right? Fuel. He would cut off the fuel to Europe. We would all freeze in our beds. Food. He would destroy the food coming out of Ukraine, and there would be famine in a food insecure world. And then finally, fire, fission, nuclear fission. If we were to help Ukraine, he would nuke us all, right? Now, so far, 2 of those pledges have rebounded on Russia. Russia, which is nothing but a gangster empire, a gas station with nukes, cosplaying as a country. And they're out of gas. Now, this is a big story. This is a bigger story than I think people appreciate, because we're getting reports now that there are people in the streets all over Russia protesting the lack of gas. Of course they are. You can't have your life without gasoline. You don't get your deliveries without gasoline. There are people now, right now, Courtney, why are they out of gas? Because the Ukrainians keep hitting oil refineries in Ukraine. Hey, Eli, in the last 60 days, we have now seen something like 18 strikes against oil refineries, taking as the conservative estimate, the consensus conservative estimate, is that refining capacity inside Russia is down by 21%. 21%. There are other estimates that put the number at closer to 29%. That means that anywhere from 1 in 5 to 1 in 3 gallons of gasoline or liters of gasoline that would normally be available inside the Russian market isn't there. These shortages are now extending into Moscow. So Lukoil, which has about 14% of all gas stations inside Moscow, has closed half of their gas stations because they don't have the fuel to keep them open. Now think about the knock-on effects of that. Half the gas stations in all of Crimea, not just one chain like in Moscow right now, but fully half of all gas stations in Crimea are shut down. Out in the far east of the country, if you're a private citizen, you can't buy gasoline. They're not just rationing it. They've stopped civilian sales entirely and prioritize business customers and the military. That's all that can buy gas in Kirill. Widespread rationing is now in effect across at least 10 regions of the Russian Federation. So this gangland nightmare, that's nothing but a gas station with nukes cosplaying as a country, is out of gas. And the Russian people are used to having lots of cheap gas. That's one of the social contracts they have. They turn a blind eye to the fact that Putin and the oligarchs steal the vast fossil fuel wealth of Russia for themselves, leaving the Russian people impoverished, just as long as the Russian people have cheap gas. Well, you know what? The Russian people don't have cheap gas anymore. The price of gas has been outpacing inflation at a rate of 2 to 1. It's double the rate of inflation. And it's affecting Russia's pocketbook. There's no two ways about it. There's a shortage of everything in Russia. Diesel, A92, A95, aviation fuel, kerosene, everything that comes from the refining of crude oil is in short supply right now. And it's not going to get any better. It is not going to get any better. So there's more of this coming. The Ukrainians are aware now of their success. They can see the effects that they are having on the Russian economy. Now, Matthew makes the point that particularly hit are the smaller private gas stations. And he is correct, as I understand it. That is also correct. Think about this for a second. Not only are there all of the obvious effects of gasoline shortages, but additionally, there are the secondary knock-on effects All those people who don't have jobs right now, they're not showing up to work to pump gas or to run the register at these places. What are they going to do for money? What impact does their spending on the Russian economy have? If half of all gas station employees are suddenly out of work and aren't contributing to the economy, what happens then? What happens to the Russian Air Force if they don't have aviation fuel? What happens, right? Can you fight a war if you don't have diesel to move the trucks that move the men, that run the diesel engines, that get your troops to the front? How do you run a war if you can't get food, fuel, and ammunition to the front line? Very difficult. I mean, there are a lot less tanks to drive these days, Seawolf, right? There are a lot fewer tanks to drive these days. That's for sure. And I agree, Mike, they are in trouble. They are in trouble. And they know they are. They know they are. Make no mistake. The Russian papers are finally admitting it. Kommersant today, they wrote, Russian officials can no longer deny the gas shortages. Because for a long time there, not a long time, but for the last month and a half or so, the Russian papers have all been saying that the official word is a seasonal demand. Right? Like, in the United States where the price of gas shoots up right before summer vacation for everybody. Well, that's what they were saying in the papers. No mention of Ukrainian drone strikes. Now they're talking in the papers about the effects of Ukrainian drone strikes. Won't China bail them out with fuel or India? No, Jedi. They won't. Why won't they? Because China and India are not net exporters of fuel. They are net importers. They buy oil and refined oil products from Russia. They don't sell to them. They need every drop that's coming into their own countries. Now, the Indians have been refining Russian oil and reselling it on the open market as gasoline and other refined oil products, mostly to places like Brazil and some African nations. But as I understand it, there is no reverse trade. Nobody is rushing. I don't even know. Well, they must. Belarus has been trying to help. Belarus just sent a train car load of diesel fuel. We think it was diesel, to Russia. The Ukrainians appear to have derailed it and burned it. So 18 fuel cars from Belarus just burned. Guy says, let's not forget about the partisans, the unsung heroes. Damn right, Guy. Let's not forget about them. Partisans continue to disrupt Russian logistics deep behind the lines. Burning railroad cabinets in particular seems to be a hobby of the Atesh group. And when they take out these railroad cabinets, that slows down all the logistics to the front. That's an excellent point, Guy, to make. And those guys are my heroes, boy. The chances that they take, the danger that they live with every day, operating behind the lines, is extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Family in Kyiv and Kremenchuk worry about blackout attacks. Any thoughts, Peter? What is a blackout attack, Designology? I don't know. Oh, you mean attacks against energy infrastructure that result in blackouts, like we saw the Ukrainians do to Belgorod last night, plunging Belgorod into darkness? Who was it? David Copperfield that made the Statue of Liberty disappear, right? Well, the Ukrainian armed forces one-upped him today when they made Belgorod disappear last night. Yeah. Oil isn't the problem, Arthur, right? Arthur's asking, will Iran provide Russia with oil? Oil's not the problem. Russia produces 9.2 million barrels of oil a day. They are a net exporter of crude oil. The problem is the refining capacity. They can't turn it into gasoline fast enough because Ukraine keeps hitting the oil refineries. And they're going to keep hitting the oil refineries. You can be sure of that. This is a strategy that's working. This is a strategy that is working. Okay, it's just about 1 a.m. here, and I really do need to get some sleep, guys. Guys, when I get back to Kyiv in 2 days, so the next live will be on Wednesday, and it should be at the normal time if I can get my ass out of bed. The rent will be due. And this trip has been very expensive, I have to say. Bulgaria is more expensive than Kyiv, that's for sure. So if anybody can sponsor a live, I don't think I have any live sponsors from Wednesday on. That would be very much appreciated. If anybody can help me out that way, that would be great. It is not impossible, Designology, that we saw some flamingos fly last night. We don't know. But it is possible that we had some flamingos migrate north to an electronics plant in Bryansk. Bryansk. So the Bryansk region of Russia is just north of Kyiv. So there's Bryansk, Kursk, and Belgorod, right on the Ukrainian border. And in Bryansk, there's an electronics manufacturing plant that produces things like, antennas for drones, as well as critical electronic components for over 1,500 defense industry partners and clients. In fact, parts from this plant have been found in Shahed drones assembled inside Russia. It's a big plant, huge. But the main workshop was targeted yesterday. And there is a large fire on the territory of that plant. There are people who are saying that it was flamingos that hit it. But we do not know. We do not have an official confirmation on that. But it is possible that we're starting to see the flamingos in action. Yes, let's breed more flamingos. Oh, hey, user Den saw something that I didn't see. Saw a report attributed to her, right, the main military intelligence directorate of Ukraine, that it was a Neptune missile used, which would make perfect sense, right? Neptune is a precision, high-capacity, long-range weapon. This plant was well within the range of a Neptune, certainly of a long Neptune. So it could easily have been a Neptune. I didn't see that report, Den. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Guy. I sure appreciate it. And Grandma, how you doing? PayPal is in the description, Grandma. One of the nice things, if you use the PayPal, you do get to discover why all my shirts are monogrammed the way they are. There is that. So don't be thrown off if you do the PayPal. Flamingos are leaving us tickled pink. Nice, George. Nice. Neptune definitely has the range. Yes, it does. Would love to see flamingos dancing on Lenin. You got it, Guard. You got it, pal. But these days I am very much Peter. Very, very much. I mean, for the last 3 years, and in Kyiv, almost everybody calls me exclusively Peter. I was walking down the street the other day and I hear out of nowhere, Peter, Peter. And I turn around and it's somebody I had never met before, but who follows the channel. A guy named Paul Smith from the Halo Trust. And the Halo Trust right now has employed about 3,500 Ukrainians in the active process of demining Ukraine. I'm hoping to get that guy on, or maybe we can, probably not officially, but he knows things about the demining situation in Ukraine that nobody else knows, because he's got 3,500 people on the ground actively demining one of the most mined countries in the world. Tomahawks and jasms for everybody is what I say. Tomahawks and jasms for everybody is what I say. Hey, Ben Tilly, how you doing, buddy? So, guys, again, I didn't see Scully in here tonight. Did I? Did anybody see Scully? Was Scully here? Scully is the sponsor of our live tonight. If anybody sees Scully around, thank her, please. Well, I'm all off the schedule. I'm so sorry, everybody. It really makes a difference. It's about half the people I notice. It's about half the people that are normally here. We're here tonight. Just Mulder. That's funny. When I first met Scully, that was the first thing I said to her. How's Mulder? I'm with you, Common Sense. There's Truthful. Hey, Truthful. How you doing? Thanks, Maddie and Feisty, our moderators. I don't know if any of the other moderators are here, but thank you guys. Thanks, Lars, who has the Discord server. Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. And I don't know. I would have to look. I am a little shy on the rent right now. Maybe $200 shy on the rent. And I could probably use a little grocery money. You know, it's funny. I made the mistake. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm dumb. I'm a dumb person. I'm a dumb person in so many ways. So anyway, I'm going to call it a night, guys. I'm going to try to get some sleep. And I got a long trip ahead of me tomorrow. Thanks, Guard. Guy, the UK should be very proud of themselves. The United States should be embarrassed and ashamed that when our principles are tested, rather than stand up for our principles, we cave to an authoritarian nightmare, wannabe dictator piece of shit, and retreat into ourselves. My fellow Americans, we should all be ashamed. The UK, on the other hand, has stood up beautifully and led the way on this thing. First ones with tanks, first ones with long-range weapons, first ones to authorize the use of long-range weapons inside Russia. First. I give it to the British on this one. They are showing us up big time. And leading the way for the rest of Europe to follow. So yeah, everybody in the UK should be very proud of themselves and the response of the government. Hey, Renvox, I am in Warsaw tonight. You know, I must just be getting old, right? Like, remember when your grandparents would talk about how expensive everything was? And when they were kids, it was so much cheaper. I mean, just ordering that Burger King today, it was pricey to me. I was like, ooh, I wouldn't pay this in the United States. Why am I doing it in Poland? It's just a taste of home. It's just a silly human thing, a taste of home. dude, at the rate that we're going, there aren't going to be any midterms. He's going to declare martial law. He's going to suspend the Constitution. He's going to suspend habeas corpus. He's going to put himself in charge. God knows what this meeting of generals and admirals is all about. But it cannot be anything good. A lot of people are saying that it's just a photo op, right? Oh, guy, it was terrible. It was Burger King, and I loved every bite. It was delicious. I mean, it was so good. It was so good. It was really so good. The chicken sandwich was particularly good. The chicken sandwich was, so good. Anyway, let's hope that what this thing is just a bullshit photo op for his base to show him, like Kim Jong-un in front of all the generals, making them sit, making them stand, making them applaud, making them praise him. Let's hope that that's all it is that kind of bullshit. General Ben Hodges raised the specter of a loyalty oath, making generals forget about their oath to the Constitution and instead commit to loyalty to him. Now, if they ask for that, we should all be deeply concerned. Just having all of the brass in one place is a huge security risk. Suppose, I mean, this is a crazy thing to say. I don't believe for 1 second that this is real. I want to highlight that. I'm not putting my tinfoil hat on. But just imagine if I were a terrorist who wanted to neuter the effectiveness of the American military. They are a perfect target. All of the generals plus the vice president and president of the United States in one place at one time? Are you kidding me? That's insane. It's absolutely insane. That was the thing that struck me the most about the Trump-Vance-Zelensky meeting back in February, right, where they ambushed Zelensky. I'm sitting there watching this meeting and I'm like, wait a minute. Why are the president and vice president in the same fucking room? That never happened my whole life. It was a rare occurrence where things were important. You keep them apart so that, God forbid, there's a fire, an explosion, a natural disaster. We have a continuity of government. We don't have to put Mike Johnson in the Oval Office, right, which was what the next step would be. So to have all of our generals, all of our admirals, the vice president, the president, and the Speaker of the House all in one place at one time is an open invitation to our enemies to try to strike and destabilize the command and control of the United States. Very, very disturbing. Lewis Smith wants to know, how has life been in Ukraine? How have you adjusted to the European lifestyle and values, etc.? I don't know. I mean, I enjoy my life in Ukraine. The only thing different about life in Ukraine is martial law, curfew, and air raids. So, the couple hours a day that you have to deal with those realities. The other 20 hours, life is very normal. Life is very normal. And in fact, Lewis, I would call out that as a point of social tension. In the capital, in Kyiv, 20 hours a day, life is normal. It's never normal on the front lines or out in the east. It's a war zone, 24/7. And that disconnect means that residents of Kyiv can, for much of their time, ignore the war, while the people in the east are living it every moment of the day. And that's caused a kind of disconnect in Ukrainian society that the Ukrainians will undoubtedly have to deal with after the war. Because you're going to have people from the east that are permanently traumatized, permanently damaged in ways that people in the capital and in the West will not be. It's a very difficult situation for the Ukrainians. It is not nearly as difficult for me. It's not my country. I don't have any family here to worry about. I haven't lost anybody close to me, though at this point there are people I have known that are gone. I don't have the emotional investment that the Ukrainians do. And so it does affect me far less, far less. I'm not invested the way they are. Common Sense in Crazy Times is worried about false flags and Russians who came in during the Alaska visit. As well you should be. Yeah. Aces High is right. The drone hunt, the human hunt in Kherson continues. Well, Mike Kelly, the Ukrainians don't have a lot of disposable income right now. Now, on the subject of false flags, I did mean to mention this. Somebody brought it up earlier. Russian officials were quoted today in Komsomolets Pravda saying that they suspect the Ukrainians have stolen or acquired Russian drones and are using them to provocatively enter the airspace of European neighbors. Now, this is such bullshit. It defies belief, right? It is worth mentioning that in Ruzamayeta Gazeta today, the Russian state-owned newspaper, was printed the words, "If Ukraine doesn't exist, Europe will never attack us." If Ukraine doesn't exist, Europe will never attack us. So the key to Russian security in the minds of Russian officials, that they are trying to frame it in the minds of the people, is that we must destroy Ukraine if we are to be safe. And in fact, in that same article, the author went on to say that it will take at least 2 more years of war to destroy Ukraine. So anybody who thinks Putin wants peace or the Russians want peace is a naive tool who should be ignored. Cow San, you may be right. You may be right. Soldiers returning home with PTSD will be an issue. Yes, they will, Paul. They are an issue already. I'll tell you, I dealt with one today. I mean, just violently angry over nothing. Deeply insecure. Unable to accept help or give help to anybody for anything. And very, very sad. Very, very sad. So no, that's a real thing, pal. We are lucky America has strong institutions, or we'd already be fighting for Russia. Yeah, you're not wrong. We need to get the message through that Putin promised 10 more countries. Yeah, he's gonna restore the Soviet Union. And when he said that, he didn't mean gas and bread lines. But that is certainly the direction it's going, isn't it? Hunted from Above on YouTube. Is that Kaylin Robertson's documentary? Hunted from Above on YouTube. If it is, that kid is great. I would highly recommend you watch it. No, Russia doesn't want its soldiers to come home because that's what happened after Afghanistan. When the Russians who had fought in Afghanistan came home, there's a direct line from that to the end of the Soviet Union. That's why it's important for the Kremlin that all these guys remain in Ukraine fertilizing sunflowers. If anybody can, thanks, Guy. I mean, I'm not in desperate situation. I don't want anybody to think that. My situation is not desperate, but it is not entirely comfortable. That's for sure. That is for sure. You know what it is? This guy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to go into that. All right. So I am going to call it a night, guys. And I appreciate everybody. And tomorrow I'll try to do a live in the morning from Warsaw. So it is that Kaylin Robertson. So Robertson is a sharp kid, sharp kid from Ireland. I'm not sure where in Ireland, but he's got a great accent, right? Like, you know, that Irish accent, very charming. But he's insightful. He's unlike me, right? I'm just an American asshole with an iPhone. He's a professional journalist. And he traveled, putting himself and his team at real risk to go to Kherson and videotape what life is like there so that he could bring that story to you. So Death from Above on YouTube, documentary about the human safari, how the Russians are using the citizens of Kherson as target practice to train drone operators, which is exactly what is happening there. And as we have discussed on this channel many, many times. Many, many times. For those of you who are interested in this part of things, everybody knows that the big thing that I do, I don't do any big things, but for me, the big thing that I do in Ukraine is I try to ensure that there is a healthy English-speaking events ecosystem in Kyiv, because I think the English language is so important to the future of Ukrainians. And there is a dearth of native speakers in Ukraine right now. So we do English-speaking events, right? We did the summer barbecue series recently. And of course, I have the Laughter is the Best Medicine Kyiv project that provides stand-up and improvisational comedy nights in English to Ukrainians free of charge. There's never any barrier to entry for anybody. Our events are free, which is important in a country that has lost 43% of its GDP and people are struggling. So coming up on Saturday is our next Laughter is the Best Medicine show, live at 7 p.m. local time. That's noon in New York on Saturday. And from Gonzo Bar Luki and Nivska, if anybody is in Kyiv and wants to come out. And so the next Laughter is the Best Medicine show is Saturday at noon Eastern time, New York time. That's 9 a.m. left coast, on the left coast. And so if anybody wants to tune in for our live stream on Saturday, maybe mark your calendars and join us for Laughter is the Best Medicine. Tomorrow, Maddie, there will be no live. Maybe I'll be able to do something early in the day, like around I don't know, probably like between noon and 2 p.m. Warsaw time, which is like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. New York time. So that's going to be for the Australians, the New Zealanders, and the Europeans. Not so much. And I'll do it from, I will not, I ate my Burger King. I'm not going to Burger King again. I'm going to try to find a Dunkin'. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Let's try to find a Dunkin'. I might go to the mall, though. They have a good, there's a fish place here that I really do like. I might try to go to that fish place. I don't know. I don't know. I'm absolutely exhausted. And I don't have to be out of the room until 11 a.m. So it is my intention to go to bed right now and sleep as much as I possibly can. Thanks, Aces High. I do recommend that you follow that kid, Colin Robertson. I say kid. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. It sounds very dismissive. He's a professional journalist with a strong commitment to the cause in Ukraine. And he's doing great work. Great work. I highly recommend him. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Mike Kelly. Thanks, Guy. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Feisty. Thanks, Maddie. Thanks, Lars. Thanks, Nightshade. Thanks, Jay, Travis, Pete, and all of the Patreon folks, especially, of course, Scully, the sponsor of tonight's live. And real quick, let's just go through the whole list again, just out of gratitude for everybody who made the Bulgaria trip possible. For the love of Mike, really? Ugh. If it's not one thing, it's another. It's just it never ends. Oh, God. It's too funny. Too funny. Let's see here now. Okay, this includes Guard. Hey, Guard. Thanks, pal. Truthful. Truthful wanted to stay anonymous. Sorry, Truthful. Arn. Avi. Lola. Kara. Scully. Guy, our buddy Guy. Daryl Roberts. Jan Halverson. Mike Nally. God, I don't know what I would have done without you guys. I mean, I barely got through this with all of your help. Pingu. I had the rent put away. And I should not have had to dip into it, but I did because I'm dumb. So anyway, it doesn't matter. All right, thanks. I didn't do anything. I didn't go gambling or anything, okay? Somebody I know needed money, and I thought I had enough money to give them some. That's what happened. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I got to go to sleep. That's where we're at. It was not cheap trip to Bulgaria, George. It was expensive. It was, these guys are on the verge of full EU integration, and it shows. It shows. The hotel alone for the week, right? Like you think going to Eastern Europe, you're going to spend $35, maybe $50 a night on a hotel room, right? No, this was closer to $70 a night. And I had it for 7 days. Going out to eat. We went out last night for a very nice meal. It was the closing ceremony, and I got invited to dinner with all of the people who ran the festival, which was very nice, I have to say. But dinner was like $60. It was very good, don't get me wrong. And that was without drinks. I did not have anything but sparkling water last night. And that was for the table. That was bought for the table by somebody there. So my entree and dinner were $60. and it was far from the most expensive thing on the menu. They had an Idaho ribeye that was $75 US. And I thought for one second about getting it. And I said to the other American that was there, if I order this, will it come out medium rare? And he said, no fucking way. There's no way. It will come out well done. And I'm like, oh boy, no, I'm not doing that then. So I had pork medallions, which were excellent. I'll tell you, the name on the menu, it was probably the most poetic menu item name I have ever ordered in my life. It was pork medallions. What was it? Pork medallions under rose hip fairy tale night. And this thing, the pork medallions were in a rose hip glaze. Just beautiful, with adore blue cheese sprinkled on top, and some sweet potato fries with a mashed potato. Get this, a mashed potato cream cheese spread for dipping. Weird, right? But wonderful flavor. And that really worked on the sweet potato fries. And a baked goat cheese appetizer. It was beautiful. Aces high, Sofia absolutely defied all my expectations. I expected it to be a gray, Eastern European kind of country where everybody was miserable all the time and looking to pick your pocket. And that was not the case at all. It is a vibrant city on the verge of full EU integration. The euro is coming in January. Get your Bulgarian money now. Correct, Grandma. Correct. Vulgary? Not at all, George. I got to tell you, the people were wonderful. I mean, I was looking for a currency exchange place so I could change some euros into Bulgarian currency. And I saw a big euro symbol over this place, and I don't read Bulgarian, but I took it to mean that it was a money exchange place, right? It was not. But when I went into the business, the fellow whose business it was took the time to get up from behind his desk, walk outside with me, and make sure that I knew where I was going so that I could get those euros changed to local money. Very thoughtful. And I found that consistently to be the case from the Bulgarians. Now, understand, I was in Sofia. I'm in the capital. It's a different world there than it's going to be out in the countryside. But I would suggest to anybody that you go to Sofia now before the EU integration, because it's only going to get more expensive, more popular, more demand. And right now it's manageable, right? But it's going the way of Amsterdam and London. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. Guy likes his pork chops with barbecue sauce and mashed potatoes. Dude, and you're right, that's basically what I had, right? But no, it wasn't. It was a whole nother thing, pal. Mwah, beautiful. George was trying to make a pun. That's not a pun, that's a play on words, George. But that's okay. I get it. And I just want everybody to know that that is not at all the impression I had of the Bulgarian people. Hey, Ramon. Your sister was there for fencing. So I met a fencer, actually. He failed to make the Bulgarian Olympic fencing team, but he was this close. He was in the finals. That's cool. I do a little fencing, French foil and Italian longsword. Thanks, George. I appreciate it. Laughter is the best medicine. You are right. Hey, DJ. All right, kids, I got to call it a night now. That's a long live. That's an hour and a half, huh? All right. Well, that's all right. Thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate it. All right, make it a great day. And if you're still up in about 7 or 8 hours, we'll probably be live from Warsaw here before I get on the bus and head back. To Kyiv. Yeah, DJ, we're just wrapping up, pal. And we're only on this late because I fell asleep before. So I'm all off the schedule and everything. I'll see you tomorrow, Maddie. Thanks. Good night, DJ. Good night, everybody. Take care.